The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with uneasy chatter as representatives from hundreds of species convened. At the center of the debate was a single holographic image, a grainy recording of a human soldier staring into the camera. His face was calm, almost serene, as he spoke a single chilling sentence, *. We don't kill unless you make us. *. This message had been broadcast across countless systems, and now the Council found itself grappling with an impossible dilemma. The humans, relatively new to the galactic stage, were both an enigma and a threat. Their technology was advanced but seemingly unexceptional compared to the Council's collective arsenal. Yet, the humans were undefeated. Every attempt to subdue them had ended in disaster, and every battle waged against them had left an indelible scar on the attackers. Perhaps it's psychological warfare, hissed Counselor Thyrax, a serpentine being with scales shimmering under the chamber's lights. They provoke fear without justification. Humans are frail by nature, biologically weaker than most species here. But their unpredictability is their strength, countered Zalara, a crystalline envoy whose voice resonated like a symphony. We must tread carefully. Their restraint unnerves me. Captain Saren Myrax of the Frelixian fleet, a towering figure with leathery skin and imposing mandibles, rose from his seat. I propose we end this once and for all. Humanity hides behind a veil of mystery. Their worlds are barely fortified, their fleets spread thin. We strike before they can grow stronger. A murmur of approval swept through the chamber, but it was short-lived. A lone voice interrupted, low and cold. You misunderstand them. All eyes turned to the speaker, Ambassador Aaron Voss of the Zaldrak Coalition, one of the few species to maintain peaceful relations with humanity. Voss, a humanoid figure with silvery hair and eyes that seemed to shimmer like starlight, stood with an expression of grim resolve. Humans are not weak, Voss began, her voice cutting through the tension. And their restraint is not born of fear or incapacity. It is a choice, a deliberate one. I implore you to reconsider this course of action. Myrax's mandibles clicked in irritation. You speak as if they are invincible. What evidence do you have to support such claims? Voss hesitated, her gaze flickering to the holographic recording. She knew the truth, though few outside her coalition did. The humans had shared fragments of their history with the Zaldrak, glimpses of a past riddled with unimaginable wars and devastation. Unlike most species, who advanced through unity and cooperation, humanity had forged its path through conflict. They do not kill lightly, Voss said at last, choosing her words carefully. But when they do, it is with precision and finality. You cannot comprehend the depths of their resolve or the lengths they will go to protect what is theirs. The chamber erupted in argument, but Voss's warning lingered like a shadow over the debate. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the Sol system, a sleek Xanthi reconnaissance vessel drifted silently in the void. Its crew had been tasked with gathering intelligence on Earth's defenses, but their initial scans revealed little of interest. The planet's orbital stations were sparse, its fleets scattered across neighboring systems. To the Xanthi, it seemed Earth had let its guard down. Primitive, muttered Zyrak, the vessel's chief analyst, as he scrutinized the data. Their planetary defenses are laughable. A single strike could cripple them. Captain Drow, a veteran of countless skirmishes, grunted in agreement. Perhaps the Council overestimates them. If these readings are accurate, humanity is ripe for conquest. But as they prepared to relay their findings, the ship's sensors detected an anomaly, a faint signal emanating from the planet's surface. It was unlike anything they had encountered before, a strange blend of electromagnetic pulses and encrypted patterns. What's that? Drow demanded, leaning over Zyrak's console. Zyrak's claws danced over the controls, amplifying the signal. I'm not sure. It's too complex to decipher, but it seems to be directed at us. Before they could react, the ship's systems went dark. Lights flickered and died, and the hum of the engines faded into silence. Panic swept through the crew as they realized their vessel was no longer under their control. Status report! Drow barked, his voice tinged with unease. Zyrak's hands trembled as he tried to reboot the systems. It's some kind of override, originating from Earth. They've taken control of the ship. As the crew scrambled to regain control, a message appeared on the main screen. It was a simple text, written in Galactic Standard, *. Leave now, or there will be consequences. *. Dral's mandibles clicked in frustration. Empty threats. Humanity can't possibly match our technology. But Zyrak's voice wavered. Captain, they disabled our ship without firing a shot. If they can do that, what else are they capable of? Dral hesitated, his confidence shaken. Humanity's restraint had always been their greatest mystery. If they had the power to neutralize a Xanthi vessel so effortlessly, what other secrets were they hiding? On Earth, deep within a hidden command center, Commander Adrian Hayes observed the situation with steely resolve. The Xanthi vessel had been neutralized without incident, just as planned. Do you think they'll take the hint? Asked Lieutenant Mara, a young officer with fiery determination. Hayes's expression remained unreadable. Unlikely. The Council doesn't understand restraint. They mistake it for weakness. But if they push us too far... Mara nodded, her gaze hardening. Then they'll learn why we don't kill unless we have to. Hayes turned his attention to the holographic display, where the Xanthi vessel was beginning to retreat. For now, the threat had been averted. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Council's fear of humanity would drive them to act, and when they did, Earth would be ready. In the quiet stillness of the command center, Hayes spoke softly, almost to himself. They think we don't kill because we can't. They'll soon learn we don't kill because they wouldn't survive if we did. The Xanthi vessel limped back into Council-controlled space, its crew shaken and uncharacteristically silent. Captain Dral sat in his quarters, replaying the encrypted signal from Earth over and over, his mandibles clicking in agitation. For all their bravado and advanced technology, the humans had crippled their ship in an instant and sent them retreating without a single shot fired. What are they hiding? He muttered to himself. Meanwhile, the Council chamber was once again ablaze with heated debate. News of the Xanthi's failed reconnaissance mission had spread like wildfire. Councillor Thyrax hissed angrily at the news. They embarrassed us! A supposedly primitive species crippled a Xanthi vessel without raising a finger. And yet, Zalara interjected, her crystalline form glowing faintly. The humans did not attack. They gave you a chance to leave unharmed. What does that tell you? It tells me they are cunning. Myrax growled, his claws tapping the surface of the Council's podium. They rely on mind games to intimidate us. This is no different than an animal puffing itself up to appear larger than it is. Ambassador Voss rose, her expression grave. Do not mistake their restraint for submission. Humanity operates on a principle you cannot comprehend. They fight only when there is no other choice. If we push them to that point, we may not survive the consequences. Her warning was met with scoffs and murmurs of disbelief. But the Council's internal squabbles were interrupted by an incoming transmission, a live feed from Earth. The room fell silent as Commander Adrian Hayes appeared on the main screen, his sharp features and piercing gaze commanding attention. This is a message for the Galactic Council, he began, his tone measured but firm. You've sent reconnaissance vessels into our system, violating our sovereignty. Consider this your final warning: leave Earth and its colonies in peace, or face the consequences. The chamber erupted into chaos, but Hayes's voice cut through like a blade. We don't kill unless provoked, but if you force our hand, we will respond with the full weight of our capabilities. Do not test us. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Council in stunned silence. Far from the Council's deliberations, Earth was preparing for the inevitable. In an underground command center buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Hayes stood before a massive holo display. The room was abuzz with activity as officers and technicians worked tirelessly to coordinate their defenses. How long until the Council makes its move? Hayes asked, his voice low. Lieutenant Mara, standing at his side, glanced at her tablet. Based on their current posturing, I'd say we have less than a week before they launch a coordinated strike. Hayes nodded, his expression unreadable. And the fleet? Ready and waiting. Mara replied. The Sentinel-class ships have been fully activated, and our orbital defense platforms are online. We've also re-established contact with the Deep Space Initiative. They're sending reinforcements. The mention of the initiative sent a ripple of anticipation through the room. It was Earth's ace in the hole, a fleet of ancient warships hidden in deep space, their true capabilities known only to a select few. These vessels were relics of humanity's darkest days, built during a time when survival had demanded ruthlessness and ingenuity. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Hayes said, though his tone betrayed little optimism. Back in Council space, the Xanthi fleet was mobilizing. Myrax had taken it upon himself to lead the charge, rallying dozens of warships to his cause. His pride demanded retribution for the humiliation humanity had dealt them. We strike swiftly and decisively, he declared to his officers. Their defenses are scattered, their fleets spread thin. Earth will fall before they can mount a proper resistance. But as the fleet prepared to jump to the Sol system, an encrypted message arrived on Myrax's flagship. The sender was unknown, but the content was unmistakable, a video feed of Earth's ancient fleet emerging from the shadows of a distant nebula. The ships were massive, bristling with weapons encoded in strange alloys that seemed to absorb light. At the center of the fleet was the Leviathan, a behemoth of a vessel rumored to be humanity's deadliest weapon. Its very existence had been dismissed as myth by most of the galaxy, but here it was, real and terrifying. Do you see now? Ambassador Voss's voice echoed from the recorded message. Humanity doesn't boast because they don't need to. Their fleet has been dormant for centuries, but they've never dismantled it. Do you know why? The message ended without an answer, leaving Myrax and his officers in stunned silence. On Earth, Hayes stood in the command center, watching as the Leviathan and its escort fleet arrived in the Sol system. The room erupted in cheers at the sight of the ancient warships, but Hayes raised a hand to silence them. This isn't a victory, he said. Not yet. The Council will see this as a challenge, not a deterrent. They won't back down until we force them to. Mara stepped forward, her voice steady. And if they attack? Hayes's gaze hardened. Then we show them why humanity doesn't kill lightly. The tension in the room was palpable as the officers resumed their work, preparing for the battle that seemed inevitable. Outside, Earth's fleets took position, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the hulking forms of the ancient warships. Together, they represented the full spectrum of humanity's power, old and new, restrained yet unyielding. In the cold vacuum of space, the Xanthi fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, their warships glinting menacingly against the starlight. Myrax, seated in his command chair, stared at the tactical display with grim determination. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we will not back down. His communications officer hesitated. Sir, what if they don't respond? Myrax's mandibles clicked in irritation. Then we'll make them respond. Humanity must learn their place in the galaxy. But even as the message was sent, a strange unease crept through the Xanthi ranks. The sight of Earth's ancient fleet had shaken even the most battle-hardened warriors. They knew this would not be an easy fight. And deep within the command center on Earth, Hayes watched the Xanthi fleet's arrival with a calm that belied the storm brewing in his mind. They've made their choice, he said softly. Now it's up to us to show them why they should have listened. As the Xanthi fleet loomed at the edge of the Sol system, the tension aboard Earth's flagship, Erebus, was electric. Commander Adrian Hayes stood at the center of the command bridge, his expression steely as he studied the tactical hologram. The Xanthi warships appeared as red icons, a sea of them steadily advancing toward Earth. Surrounding the planet were Earth's forces, a modest modern fleet, its ships sleek and agile, and the ancient Sentinel-class warships, massive and bristling with weapons. Status report, Hayes ordered, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. Lieutenant Mara's voice was steady as she read from her console. Xanthi fleet has split into 3 squadrons. Their main force is approaching directly, with flanking groups moving to hit our defense platforms in orbit. Their ships are heavily shielded, but their formation is predictable. Predictable? That word gave Hayes a glimmer of confidence. And the Leviathan? It's holding position, Mara replied. Awaiting orders. The Leviathan, Earth's most fearsome weapon, was the keystone of their defense. Hayes knew its power was unrivaled, but deploying it too soon would reveal their hand. Humanity's best strategy was to play on the Council's ignorance, keeping their most devastating capabilities a secret until the last possible moment. Let them come, Hayes said. Activate the defense platforms and prepare the first wave. We'll test their resolve before we commit. On the Xanthi flagship Dreadspire, Captain Myrax watched with grim satisfaction as his fleet surged forward. The humans had formed a defensive perimeter, but to him, it was little more than a token resistance. They're stalling, Myrax growled. They think their defenses can hold us at bay. Let's show them how wrong they are. Launch fighters and target their orbital platforms. Focus fire on their lead ships. The bridge buzzed with activity as his orders were relayed. Hundreds of Xanthi fighters swarmed ahead, their sleek forms darting toward Earth's orbital defenses. Behind them, the massive warships advanced in perfect formation, their energy cannons charging. But as the first wave of fighters reached the defense platforms, the battlefield erupted into chaos. Automated turrets sprang to life, unleashing torrents of plasma fire that tore through the attacking ships with terrifying precision. Earth's modern fleet moved with calculated efficiency, intercepting the surviving fighters and engaging the larger Xanthi vessels. They're more coordinated than expected, Myrax admitted, though his confidence remained unshaken. But it won't be enough. Increase pressure on their flanks. We'll break their line and force their fleet to retreat. Back on Erebus, Hayes watched the battle unfold with growing intensity. The initial engagement was going well. Earth's forces were holding their ground, but the Xanthi's sheer numbers were beginning to take their toll. Captain Myrax is playing it safe, Mara observed. He's testing our defenses, but he hasn't committed his full force yet. He's waiting for us to show weakness, Hayes replied. But we won't give him the satisfaction. Prepare the second wave. Deploy the Sentinel-class ships to the flanks and draw their attention away from the orbital platforms. The ancient warships moved into position, their hulking forms dwarfing the more modern vessels. As they engaged the Xanthi forces, the difference in firepower became clear. The Sentinel-class ships unleashed devastating volleys of energy, their weapons tearing through the enemy's shields and armor with ease. On the Dreadspire, Myrax's mandibles twitched in frustration as he watched his flanking squadrons falter. What are those ships? He demanded. Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database. They're ancient, his tactical officer replied. But their technology, it's unlike anything we've seen before. It's as if... Enough! Myrax snapped. No matter how advanced their ships are, they're still outnumbered. Focus fire on those warships and bring them down. The battle raged on, and the Xanthi's relentless assault began to push Earth's defenses to their limits. Hayes knew they couldn't hold the line forever. The time had come to unleash their trump card. Signal the Leviathan, Hayes ordered. Tell them to engage. The bridge fell silent as the order was relayed. Moments later, the massive ship emerged from its position, its dark hull glinting ominously in the starlight. The Leviathan was a relic of humanity's most desperate era, a warship built not for defense but for total annihilation. As it moved into the fray, the Xanthi fleet turned its attention toward the new threat. Myrax stared at the behemoth in disbelief, his confidence wavering for the first time. Target that ship, he barked. All batteries, fire at will. The Leviathan absorbed the barrage without flinching. Its advanced shielding technology, long considered a myth by the Council, rendered the Xanthi's weapons useless. Then, with a deafening roar, the ship retaliated. The Leviathan's main cannon unleashed a beam of energy so powerful that it carved through the Xanthi's front line, obliterating ships in its path. Smaller weapons systems targeted the remaining vessels with unerring accuracy, leaving devastation in their wake. On the Dreadspire, panic erupted as the flagship's shields faltered under the Leviathan's relentless assault. Myrax gripped the arms of his chair, his mind racing. This wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. We underestimated them, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Fall back. Signal the fleet to retreat. As the Xanthi fleet began its hasty withdrawal, cheers erupted aboard Earth's ships. On the Erebus, Hayes allowed himself a small smile, but his focus remained sharp. This isn't over, he said. They'll regroup and come back stronger. But now they know what we're capable of. Mara nodded, her expression determined. We've sent them a message they won't forget. Hayes turned back to the holodisplay, watching as the remnants of the Xanthi fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Humanity had won the day, but he knew the war was far from over. Let them run, he said softly. Next time, they won't be so lucky. As the shattered remnants of the Xanthi fleet limped back into Council space, Captain Myrax's reputation lay in tatters. His grand ambition of crushing Earth had turned into a humiliating defeat. Yet the Galactic Council was far from ready to accept this outcome as final. The chamber buzzed with heated debate, fear, and anger as the implications of humanity's devastating retaliation sank in. They unleashed a relic fleet that defies our understanding, Councillor Thyrax growled, slamming a clawed hand on the table. We cannot allow this species to wield such power unchallenged. They did not attack us without reason, Ambassador Voss countered, her voice calm but firm. Their retaliation was measured. They dismantled our fleet yet spared countless lives. That is not the act of a barbaric species. Councillor Zalara's crystalline form pulsed with an ominous glow. They revealed only a fraction of their strength. What happens if they decide to show the rest? A silence fell over the chamber. Even the most hawkish members of the Council could not ignore the chilling truth. Humanity had given them a warning, not a death sentence. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the victory was celebrated, but the mood was far from jubilant. Commander Adrian Hayes stood in the underground command center, addressing his officers and advisors. We've won the battle, but the war is far from over, he began. The Council won't let this go unanswered. We need to solidify our defenses and ensure they understand the cost of further aggression. Lieutenant Mara stepped forward, her tone resolute. The Leviathan sent a message loud and clear. If they're smart, they'll think twice before provoking us again. Hayes nodded but remained somber. We can't rely on fear alone. We need allies, even among those who stand against us. Prepare the diplomatic corps. It's time we offered the galaxy something the Council never has, genuine partnership. In the days that followed, Earth's fleet worked tirelessly to repair the damage and reinforce its defenses. Messages were dispatched to independent species across the galaxy, offering terms of mutual respect and cooperation. One such message reached the Alteran Collective, a species long oppressed by the Council. Their leader, Elder Listen, watched the footage of humanity's ancient fleet with wide, shimmering eyes. They spared the Xanthi, Listen murmured. Despite having the power to annihilate them. A young Alteran advisor leaned closer. Perhaps they are the allies we've been waiting for. Listen's bioluminescent features glowed with determination. Send a response. We will hear what they have to say. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Species disillusioned with the Council began to take notice of Earth's defiance. The seeds of rebellion were being sown, and humanity stood at the heart of it. The Council, however, was not idle. In secret, they convened their most powerful leaders and strategists to discuss their next move. Myrax, though disgraced, was brought before the assembly to give his account of the battle. They are unlike any foe we've faced, he admitted. Their technology, their strategy, it's as if they've prepared for this moment for centuries. And yet they are still mortal, Councillor Thyrax hissed. Every species has a weakness. We must find theirs and exploit it. Ambassador Voss, weary of the Council's obstinance, rose to speak. Their greatest strength is not their fleet or their weapons, it's their restraint. They understand something we've forgotten. War is not a game. If we push them further, we may awaken a fury we cannot contain. Her words were met with scorn, but in the back of the chamber, a shadowy figure observed in silence. The Council's supreme strategist, a being known only as the Architect, had been watching humanity for decades. "They are dangerous," the Architect finally said, their voice a whisper that carried through the chamber. "Not because of their power, but because of their unpredictability. If we are to confront them, we must do so with absolute precision." As tensions escalated, Earth's diplomatic efforts began to bear fruit. A coalition of independent species formed around humanity, united by a shared desire to break free from the Council's tyranny. In a secluded chamber aboard the Leviathan, Hayes met with representatives of the new coalition. Elder Listen was among them, her translucent form radiating hope. "You've given us something we never thought possible," Listen said. "A chance to stand against the Council." Hayes clasped her delicate hand, his voice firm. "We're stronger together. But this isn't just about survival, it's about building a future where no species lives in fear." The coalition's first act was to establish a network of shared resources and intelligence. Together, they began to develop strategies that would not only defend their territories but also challenge the Council's dominance. The Council's response was swift and brutal. They launched a series of strikes against the coalition's outer territories, hoping to fracture the fragile alliance. But Earth's fleet, bolstered by the coalition's forces, met them at every turn. In the largest battle yet, the Leviathan once again took center stage. Its presence on the battlefield inspired both awe and terror, turning the tide in favor of the coalition. As the dust settled, Hayes addressed the coalition's assembled leaders. "This war isn't over, but today we've shown the Council that we won't back down. Together, we can create a galaxy where no one wields unchecked power." In the aftermath, the Council was forced to retreat and regroup. Their fleets were battered, their resources stretched thin. The coalition, though still young, had proven its resilience. Back on Earth, Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Erebus, watching as the first ships of the coalition fleet arrived in orbit. For the first time in years, he allowed himself a moment of hope. "We didn't start this war," he said to Mara, who stood beside him. "But we're going to finish it." "And when we do?" she asked. Hayes's gaze hardened. "We'll build something better." In the far reaches of space, the Architect watched the growing coalition with a mix of admiration and dread. Humanity had done what no other species had dared. They'd stood against the Council and survived. But the Architect knew the Council would not go quietly. The galaxy had changed forever, and the real battle was just beginning.